morning and welcome to the Senior Hour, which is sponsored by Comfort Keepers in-Home Care and Advanced Audiology. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Whoops. This is a show for, about, and by seniors, giving information to enhance one's quality of life. And our first guest this morning is Arif Halaby of Total Financial Solutions.
Hello,
Welcome.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good.
And later in the hour, we will be speaking with Kim Wahl, an alternative medicine advocate. Okay, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, guys, look, our seniors have always been, especially here in Santa Clarita, a very generous group of folks, whether it's through helping the senior center directly, or even if it's just small donations at church or Boys and Girls Club. We just generally tend to be a bit more on the generous side.
That's true.
Why that matters is because there are some unscrupulous folks out there that actually prey on this. They know that you are a generous type. They know that you have a concern and a care for the hurricane victims in Texas and in Florida. And I don't want you to forget Texas and Houston and some of those homes. You can look at some of the pictures, and there's 3, 4, 5, 10 feet of water in some of these homes. Virtually everything is destroyed and devastated. And so there are a lot of folks that are going to need some help. But here's what I want you to watch out for. Number one, you need to make sure you don't fall victims to some of these scams that are telling you they're raising money for the victims. Here's what we watch out for. Number one, always go to CharityWatch.org, CharityWatch.org, or Charity Navigator. I think it's .com, but Charity Navigator. Charity Watch and Charity Navigator are two websites you can go to check out the charity and do some research. Spend a minute or two. You can see how much money they give to the actual charities versus administration fees and costs and marketing, etc. That matters a lot when you're looking at saying, I'm going to give whatever, let's say $100. Well, I want that $100 to go towards the charity. I don't want it to go to some private plane. And look, there's been some controversy with the American Red Cross. They regularly spend money that they shouldn't be spending on things, according to what a lot of people say, and I'm one of them. I think their administrative costs, I think paying their CEO $1 million plus another $500,000 in benefits, plus multiple private jets. Look, for my money, we give to the United Way and we give to the Salvation Army.
Salvation Army.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So why do we do that? Because Salvation Army, his salary is about $40,000 a year.
I know.
You know that?
Know.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I looked up all of these.
Isn't it incredible?
It's absolutely amazing.
And the Red Cross is a great group of folks, fine, whatever, but their administrative fees, their behind-the-scenes costs they're just a marketing genius, and that's why they seem to have multiple dollars that come in. And they are still holding money from the Haiti earthquake from years ago. I think it's been almost a decade now, and they're still holding money from there. So I don't know. Billions, I think it was $2 billion ultimately were donated for some of these different causes, and I don't know how much of it has ever really gone. So United Way, what do? They are a charity of charities. So when you give to the United Way, they have very little direct to a person in need. They go to the local charities on the ground, and they vet them and make sure that their quality meet their standards. And they say, you already know what's happening in the community. You already know the seniors. You already know the children. You already know the orphans. So we're going to give you money to give to them directly. So that's why I like the United Way, is it's a charity of charities, and they don't pretend to know everything. It's kind of like the old communist government, right? American Red Cross thinks it can be everywhere all the time. And I think the more involved, the larger of any government or organization, the smaller the value is to the recipient of their services. It's just simply a math problem, math and logic, right? So I want you to watch out for that.
Salvation Army. I did the research on all of these so-called, and the Red Cross was the worst.
It was, yeah.
As far as not giving like they're supposed to give.
Their percentages is
terrible.
Just,
Salvation Army was absolute lowest.
That's right.
And staff get paid very little. The head guy, like you said, gets paid very little.
Take a look at the homes that they live in.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, I did a lot of research because we wanted to give to some some organization that we knew
Yeah.
would spend our money or use our gifts or whatever wisely.
You know, there's another scam I want you to watch out for, and it's the used cars that are coming to California. There are multiple used cars. Some reports are over 500,000 automobiles were damaged or destroyed in the hurricanes. And of those 500,000 vehicles, a lot of insurance companies will take them, clean them up, pay a few dollars, resell them, maybe multiple times by the time you get them, and they are on a big rig heading to California and other places
That's
to be
right.
sold as, quote, just used cars.
Is there any way to track that, though, Arif?
Yeah, good question. You know, one of the things I want you to do is to look for salvaged vehicle. There's something called a salvage title. That's the easiest way. So when you get a title, which means the registration or the ownership documents, it will say on there salvaged. Okay, that's one way. However, not all vehicles that are sold that should be salvaged are written as salvaged, because there's a secondary way to get around that salvage title, because a salvaged title diminishes the value of the vehicle.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, a lot of people say, well, I just don't want to do that. So I've got a better way to go. So what they do is they say, whoa, don't salvage it. I'm going to pay whatever, I'll give you the $20,000 for this car. And then they get it, they rebuild it, clean it up, and then they sell it for $32,000 or whatever it might be. As if it was a low mileage 2-year-old car. You go, wow, this is a great deal. So a second way to look at it, besides the salvage title, is going to be, in my opinion, a second way, which is very simply, you have to go through the vehicle and you make sure that the places that nobody's going to look, like behind the seats, underneath the seats, because what you're going to find is that mold and mildew, disease, is going to creep into those places, and it doesn't happen overnight. It happens after a couple of summers, and that spores and the mildew and those things that start to really kick in can be health damaging, especially if you're susceptible to other issues.
Can't you, though, smell mold? Do they just spray it up enough to
That's
where
what they do.
You can't sense it at all?
Yeah, exactly. They'll use different equipment to what's the right word? Basically,
Demold.
demold,
Or
right?
demold smell.
And you can do that in a home if it's not that bad. If you had a water leak in your house and it's a little bit, you can get in and actually kill the mold and mildew. The problem is you got to make sure you get it all.
That's true.
Mm.
And if these people aren't doing it to a car they're going to keep, in many cases they don't seem to take the same amount of care that one would if it was your own vehicle or your own house, right? If it's your house and your family's home and you had a dishwasher that overflowed, you're going to do what you can to cut it out, to clean it up, to
Yeah.
repaint it, to seal it, all of those things. In a car that is just purchased to be flipped, be very careful in that used car setup, because my concern is the health and respiratory issues can be significant, as you know.
There is no such thing as a mold-smelling dog.
Yeah.
You don't have anyone who can,
Ah.
a dog that would say, hey, there's mold, a lot of mold
Yes.
in this car. It'd be kind of cool. But what happens if, one of our listeners is saying, okay, my great-grandson needs a car. And, we can't afford even a used car right now. One of these salvage cars might be worthy to get. I mean, is that something worth looking into
Yeah.
as well? And, finding a good mechanic to check things out.
That's
does it
exactly what
run?
you do. Yeah, yeah. If you're going in eyes wide open and you're saying, okay, I know that I'm buying something and I'm expecting it to have some electrical issues, because that's the problem in the future. It's the electrical. And I bought one of these cars years ago when I was probably 20 years old, and it was something that gave me nothing but problems. Stopped on the freeway.
Whoa.
Yes, thank goodness I was able to coast over to the slowly, and I was getting ready to get off on the 118 at Tampa, and I was able to coast over and stop literally like on the on-ramp, or the off-ramp. It was horrible. But the dealership took it back, because I bought it from a dealership. The dealership took it back, and they went through it and I bought a new car, and they just wrapped that into the new car. So
Do you think they knew what was wrong with it when they sold it to you?
I don't think they did. Maybe, it's
Hard
so
to tell.
far away from, because by the time 2 or 3 or 4 generations get it, nobody knows, where it was before.
Yeah.
Another telltale sign is look to see the history of the vehicle, and if it was registered in the Houston area, if it was registered in any part of Florida, at one point in time in its life cycle, that's just another,
Indication.
interesting.
How
Yes.
do you find that information out, though? You look up the car number and it shows it somewhere. There's a history, or
When you
is
take it to the DMV, you should be able to get a history of it, the motor vehicle one.
even if it's out of state.
Well, they'll give you now today all of the DMVs are linked together.
Oh,
So I'm not sure if you
nationally?
yes. So
With Texas?
I don't know. Texas is on its own.
We gotta check that out with Texas and Florida, don't we?
Yeah. Usually what I would do is I would say, all right, I'm going to go to the DMV. Give me a history on this vehicle. So if they can't tell me where it was, but all of a sudden in August of 2017 it shows up in California, or in December of 2017 it shows up in Arizona, and you said, where was it before? This is a 2009 car. Where was it before? And nobody knows. You just want to think twice. So the answer is really take it to your mechanic. You're going in eyes wide open. You say, listen, it runs pretty well. I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to take it apart. Still, take it to your mechanic. Respect their time. There's a few mechanics that we deal with. There's one particular we love. We've taken our cars to. They've treated me and my wife with respect and told us things that
Trustworthy.
were very trustworthy.
Yes,
we
I
like them.
know.
They're Ace Automotive here on Railroad. I know Pack Automotive has done us a very good job as well. So those are two probably solid companies that I would work with. And then don't forget you want to pay for their time, right? You're pulling them off a job that they're able to feed their family. So offer to pay. And even if they say, well, you're a long-time customer, I'm still going to pay. I don't know if it's 100 or 200. I don't know where the fair number is, but I do want you to remember to offer to pay. One, so that they will have the time to do a good job, and
That's
two,
right.
you want to appreciate them. They're working for their families just like you.
Plus, if they find something wrong with the car, then they've saved you a lot of money.
Huge. And the peace of mind on the other side,
And not
right?
getting stuck on the freeway.
Yeah. Stay away from the 118 in Tampa. And at the same time, look, the peace of mind, if you know you're going to give your grandchild a car, or you need a second car to drive around, or maybe the SUV four-wheel drive is just not for you anymore because of your knees or backs or hips, and it's time to get a four-door sedan, and you're thinking, I just don't want to spend $60,000, but right? You can do that. Just go in with your eyes open.
That's right.
So earlier in the show, you were talking about donating, and
Yes.
one of the problems still is that our seniors will get phone calls from people pretending that they're the Salvation Army or United Way.
All day long, yeah.
And how do they, Arif, decipher through that? How do they, sometimes it's difficult, but for sure, one should not give a credit card number, a
Yes.
social security number, of course, a bank account number to anyone over the telephone.
So even if it's a charity that you've worked with in the past, or it's an organization that you're very familiar with, but it's an unsolicited reach out. In other words, these are people coming to you, not you going to them. Then I would be very cautious, especially when they say, well, we happen to have somebody in the neighborhood and they can come by and pick up the check this afternoon. Oh my goodness, really? So what I would do instead is, if you have it in your heart and you feel like you want to donate, and if the call is the thing that generated it for you, you say, well, you know what, I didn't think about it. Wow, that person is okay, thank you so much. I'll think about it. And you hang up. Sometimes you
Exactly.
have to be impolite, folks. Your generation, my generation, is taught to be polite, and that is used against us
Yep.
when you want to hang up a phone, because I'm hanging up now. I'm gonna hang up, right? We just feel like we don't want to say, unless they say goodbye, we're not going to hang up.
I got a phone call this morning
Uh-huh.
from some kind of organization that wanted to give me a free trip.
What a nice company.
Because your name has come up. You have so many points on such and such and so and so. I said, really? Well, I'm not interested in traveling now. I'm too old. Thank you. Goodbye.
But it was to Tampa Bay, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, right. It's a
Florida.
free
Yes.
trip to
No,
Key
no,
West.
it was
West.
a cruise, because we had racked up so many points
Of
on such
course.
and such and so and so.
And sometimes I'm guessing some of those things may be legitimate. I don't know if that's, but if it is, and I was in that world and it was a legitimate way to cold call people, literally, I would think you'd have to know that you're swimming upstream. It's very difficult because it has been so polluted with these scam artists that are calling and knocking on your doors. It's just very difficult to get through that without.
You know what's interesting? The same call came into Russ. He has a separate line.
Yes.
Same call came into him about 30, 40 minutes later.
Huh.
And
Same person, do you think?
It was the same person. I could tell by the tone of her voice. And it was, oops, I dropped my phone. I'm sorry. This is such a, and she went on and on and on and on about this cruise and all the points you've racked
Oh
up.
my goodness.
Was it the same
And
number
Russ,
of points?
I said, I don't know what points she was talking about. I didn't go that far. Sometimes, though, I do, and I pull them along and pull them along and pull them along and say, well, I have to check with my husband. Why don't you call me back? And sure enough, they call back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this
So
one guy said a couple of weeks ago, said that, well, have you made up your mind? Let me let you talk to our such and such. And I said, my husband said no. Well, let me talk to your husband.
Sure.
Let me try to convince him. You
So
know,
it was a free trip that you were getting, but you had to just pay the tax of $2,000 on it, right?
I don't know. I didn't get that far
Wow.
because I knew what it
Yeah.
That's
was.
the scam.
I
You know,
knew what it was.
we have a scam that has hit close
Pay
to
us.
home. My aunt is somebody who is really fallen for these things. It's those coins, buy now and get the coins, and then the coins, and it's gold plated or bronze with a nickel plated or whatever baloney it is. And it's a limited edition of all the presidents, and their dogs or something. And it's
Well, they have that on the TV, too.
literally the size of this studio, 4 feet, 5 feet tall, filled with boxes, would be what she has.
Wow.
400,000 maybe?
Wow.
Maybe more. From the very first scam, she wouldn't listen. I sat there. My dad sat there. We sat there together. I sent letters to her formally, because she wouldn't listen there. I've done everything I could. Oh, it's the Canadian lottery. You won. Oh, now we entered you. So the way these guys bait you in is they say, oh, you have won $1,000. So send us 100 and we'll give you 1,000. And you go, yeah, it's worth it. I'll send it in. Well, son of a gun, if they send you the $1,000. And you go, well, that's great. Well, now you're only upside down $900, right? Because you gave 100 of that 1,000 as your own money. And they do this all the way up until 15 or 20, until they can keep, but they lower the amount. Oh, you only have to, we're only going to give you $1,500, but you got to send us $25,000 for the $500,000 prize.
And make sure it's a cashier's check.
Yes.
That's right.
And you think, wow, $500,000.
We'll take a credit card.
Yes. And the hardest part of these things is these are folks, the reason that they're doing this is because they're not sure if they're going to have enough money for the rest of their life. So they're afraid, right? They're afraid of running out of funds. And add in there a little bit of dementia. Add in there a little bit of folks just not clear.
About greed, when you're getting something for
nothing.
That plays a role.
Yes. Everything has a
all
trade-off.
during your life, not just as a senior with dementia, but all during your life.
That's right.
Yeah, we get scammed.
And you have to, I have one relative who kind of saw that things were slipping. Because a lot of people will, I can still drive. It was those people that cut me off. And there are others that say, it's time for me to hang up my driver's license. And there are others that say, I can't remember where or how I wrote this last check. And they are mature enough, wise enough to have to bring in a family member and say, most of the time I'm right on. I'm good with this. I can do this. But every once in a while, I'm making a mistake. Is there a way that I can have you help me so I'm not going to do this anymore? And that, boy, is that a brave thing to do, to give up that power, that control. And the people around you have to have that same level of understanding that are not enabling you. So it's a hard thing to do. I've seen it. We were worried about it.
Well, the other thing, too, which happened to us, we have one credit card that we use for miscellaneous stuff, going to dinner and that kind of thing. and I got the bill about a week or so ago, and the amount was up to $5,000
Wow.
plus.
What?
And I looked at that, and there were all kinds of little items on there.
Of course.
And fortunately, before I called them, they called me and said, "We're suspecting some fraud
Right.
on your credit card." I said, "Absolutely." I said, "I was going to give you a call." And she said, "Well, let's check off some of those items." Well, it was in Rialto, California, Cucamonga.
Sure.
We haven't been anywhere near there.
Yeah.
And it mounted up to about $3,000 worth.
Wow.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's right.
Oh,
It-
Yeah, it
it's
could've been with
amazing.
Equifax.
There must have been.
That's possible. It could have
There
been one of
must
the
have been at
Equifax.
least a dozen of these charges.
Wow.
In somewhere
Never
way,
been.
way off.
You know, often you'll see those charges because certain businesses don't require a signature past a certain dollar figure, $25, $50, whatever the different numbers. One of the drugstores here in town, I think it's Walgreens or CVS, you don't sign if it's less than, I think, $25. Well, okay, but now that means the 15 people behind me keep charging $25, and now it's a real number, and they're walking away with whatever the merchandise is that they're buying.
Right.
Today, though, look, there are video cameras, there's facial recognition. Like this guy that's a bank robber out and about, you see him.
Oh,
do they
he
really
hasn't
think
been
that?
caught yet, has
Yeah, but
he?
does he really think that they don't know his name already? I mean, honest to goodness, really?
PT Cruiser bandit.
I was in law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
They know who this person is. And
Yeah.
I'm quite sure it's
Oh,
ridiculous.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's facial recognition. Look, you can take a picture of yourself, run it on the internet, and any place you've ever had a picture taken, it pops up through Google face recognition now. So it's not a secret. This is stuff that's on 101 technology. So
But, the thing though, Arif, is sometimes when I use my credit card, I'm always extending my ID, and many places don't even ask to compare your ID with the credit card
because
And
it's
I think,
irrelevant.
to me, though, that's a something that could stop people from doing that. At least be one of those barriers that could be helpful to say, hey, if it's a stolen credit card, because now
Sure.
if they rip off your credit card, you can walk in the store and charge under $25 and
That's right.
go to Rancho Cucamonga and
That's
be
right.
charging on Barbara's card.
So what happens, I can use your credit card legitimately right now. You say, oh, hey, I'm on the air right now. Can you run out and get us just a case of water for the next, here, take my card. And I'll grab your credit card and run out to the store, pick up 2 or 3 things, and come back. Now you're like, did they ever notify or say you didn't look like Dr. Dorio? No. Why? Because you can legitimately give me permission to use your card.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
So even if
That's
I show
true.
my ID as Arif Halaby, they'll say, but you're not Gene Dorio.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. What your responsibility is when you find out that it's been stolen is to go out and to notify these people. So when it's swiped, it goes beep, beep, sorry, you get nothing.
Yeah.
That's when it's supposed to pop in there.
Yeah. Well, retinal identification, face recognition, I mean,
Yes.
these are all things that need to be out there. And I'm just not
Fingerprints.
yet sure, we've done these other things with putting the chip in the card. And,
Yeah.
I just think that's a fallback to almost nothing. They just figure out a way. I mean, if they can put a mask on and duplicate your face, if they can
Yeah.
put a contact in your eyeball to show your retina, well, that's great, but they're not going to be able to do that.
Right, that's not somebody in a van in the parking lot.
Yeah.
It's not as easy.
So we can stop some of this, Barbara.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yep.
That's very true.
In Europe,
We
they've
can.
had the chips for years.
Oh, yes.
It's a new thing here, but
But they're
And it-
still having trouble in Europe, and they're having trouble here.
the credit card that you had seen as a fraud, did that have a chip in it? Was that a chip card, or was that just the numbers, the old-fashioned
No,
ones?
it was a chip card.
Was it really?
Yeah. See,
Well,
I mean, they're getting around it.
it's
That,
supposed
to
to
me,
not
as
be.
soon as I saw the card, I was figuring, this is easy to get by.
Right.
This is ridiculous to have this kind of technology and telling people this is a new way of doing it to thwart the efforts of people who are going to steal your credit card.
That's right.
It never was going to work, but they just decided this was what they were advancing out there to think we're protected, and look what's happened.
Right.
Didn't work.
I think there are so many legitimate charges that the loss on their side is manageable. I don't want to say acceptable, but manageable.
Well, it's built into their system, losses.
That's right. That's why they charge everybody more money. It's the same thing as a grocery store or a big box store.
Mm-hmm.
They have certain expectations built into their system of what's called shrinkage.
Mm-hmm.
Shrinkage is stolen merchandise, whether it be by employees, which is a big part of it, believe it or not, or whether it be by strangers walking in.
Well, let me ask you something. in our situation with all these fraudulent charges, how can they do that with just having the number?
Yeah, because you can go to the hotels that have the magnetic strip, those
Yeah.
20-cent cards or whatever they charge. Grab a bunch of those, wipe the magnetic strip, get a unit you can buy on Amazon, at least you used to be able to, or eBay. Type in the number with the expiration date, swipe the card, and it loads it. Just like when you go to a hotel.
Really?
When you go to a hotel and they have those stack of
Whoa.
cards there, and
It loads the room number on it.
That's
and
right.
Your ID and things like that.
the old ones, and we don't see this as much, but when we started doing our radio shows 14 years ago, this was a huge problem because the technology, when you swiped it, there were 3 spots on that magnetic strip. One of them was the room number, one of them was who your name is, and the other one they put your credit card information.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh.
So you had your driver's license, credit card, and your room number. So what people would do is they would take those cards and just throw them away.
Mhm.
And crooks would grab them, swipe it, and they just had it boop, it's all your life.
Ooh.
So today the technology is a little different. They're doing secondary codes. However, once you have one of those magnetic cards, you just wipe it, so now it's empty, and you recharge on it. And now, even though it looks like a regular card, like a hotel card, when they go to a place where they swipe it in, it now becomes... That's why a good retail establishment will look at your card, look at the numbers, make sure they're the same, okay, give you your card back. That's what they're trained and supposed to do, is to check the card, not for the name. You think it's about your ID. They never even looked at my ID. No. They're looking to see if the numbers match up to what came up on the screen.
Mhm.
That's
How
the difference.
interesting. Well, it makes you almost not want to use a credit card when something like that comes up, you know?
Quite scary, isn't it?
It really is. And I wonder if somebody in one of these restaurants that we ate in got that number and used it. You know, you never know. I'm thinking, I said to Russ, we're not going to use a credit card anymore
Yes.
when we eat out.
Well, let
We're
me tell you
paying
what happens.
cash.
Here's what you do, especially if you like the points and all of that. Here's what you do. You have multiple credit cards. We used to tell people to have one at home for emergencies and one da-da-da.
Right.
Now, my suggestion is to have multiple cards, specifically one of them that is your eat out, your small one that we know it's traveling around. Another one that's the internet, for charges on the internet.
Correct.
Because what happens, believe it or not, in the restaurant world, a complete stranger, you gave your credit card and they disappear for 5-10 minutes.
That's true. They do. That's
What
true.
I think is an amazing setup, and I want to say it's a local restaurant. I think it might be Chili's or one of the restaurants here in town, where they bring the unit to you. You swipe it right there. You swipe
Mhm.
it at your table.
Cool.
Your card never leaves your hands.
I think it is Chili's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
it
a
is.
great idea.
It is.
And probably because ultimately there was a trace back to whatever establishment. I don't know if it was that restaurant or not, but to an establishment. And that establishment, that restaurant was fined or was penalized or had a bad name. And they said, forget it. We don't want to go down that road. So we're going to cut it off at the pass. And they did a great thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Wow.
this has been a lot of good
A
information.
lot of great information there.
Thanks, guys. I want
Thank you so
all of us to be
much.
safe.
Yes.
All you guys, protect
Yes,
your name,
terrific.
number.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
Thank you.
wonderful. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host, Dr. Jean Dorio, on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.
Doing right starts right here. At Union Bank, community banking is at the heart of what we do. From giving customers more convenient access to their money to financing their homes here in the neighborhood. Union Bank believes in acting locally. We also believe that investing in local businesses helps everyone. For over 150 years, Union Bank has grown strong one community at a time. We live here, we do business here, and we're here for you. Stop by your local branch today to experience the strength of community banking. There are 3 Union Bank branches conveniently located in the Santa Clarita and Antelope Valley area. To find your nearest branch, visit unionbank.com. Loan subject to credit and collateral approval. Financing available for collateral located in California, Oregon, and Washington. Fees and restrictions may apply. Terms and conditions subject to change. MUFG Union Bank N.A. member FDIC equal housing lender. Union Bank is a registered trademark and brand name of MUFG Union Bank N.A.
At the Burrito Factory, their motto has always been to serve quality food with fast, friendly service. But did I mention the taste? When it comes to authentic taste and huge mouth-watering burritos, the Burrito Factory is second to none. Whether it's lunch, dinner, or a catered event, Burrito Factory has the taste of Mexico to satisfy your craving. Burrito Factory on Soledad Canyon Road next to Chi-Chi's Pizza in Canyon Country. Stop in or call ahead 288-0222.
Did you see that car?
Isn't it the best? A moving advertisement.
Command eye-catching attention with the vehicle wrap by Feathers. Feathers can turn your company vehicles into a cost-effective moving billboard. Their high-quality, high-resolution vehicle wraps deliver excellent marketing exposure. Feathers works closely with you to clearly display your message. Whether it's for branding of a new product, increasing name recognition, or promoting an event, Feathers Vehicle Wraps gets the job done. Feathers on Soledad and Canyon Country across from Edwards Theaters.
At Advanced Audiology, we know how important hearing is to you, your loved ones, your work success, your safety, and your ability to stay in the game. Most people won't admit hearing loss to themselves or others. We make it easy for you. Today's digital hearing aids come in a
Welcome back to the Senior Hour. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host.
Dr. Gene Dory.
There we go. We got you here on your hometown station, KHTS. Yes. And our guest now is Kim Wahl, who is an alternative medicine advocate.
Hi, guys.
How are you? So
Welcome
good
back,
to
Kim.
see you.
Good. Good to see
And
you.
I wanted to talk to you about I heard on the radio from a doctor or a nutritionist about certain foods not to touch. One of them is yogurt.
Oh, yes. Yogurt is actually some of the studies show that it can actually, in young females and women, increase your breast cancer rate by
That's what she said.
Yeah, very, very
Okay,
scary numbers. And it's sad because a lot of those companies sponsor the ribbon races. You got to
That's
know
right.
where your money's going, people. If you're going to support people, make sure you know what that dollar's going for. That's important to know.
But what if you're a senior guy who doesn't care about breast cancer at some
Well,
point?
then you still
Is
have-
it okay to have yogurt?
No, because you still have
Oh.
breasts and you still have a prostate, and those are both estrogen sensitive. So nope. Nope. Now, if you're
Now,
making
what if you're-
making yogurt from a yogurt machine and you've got beautiful raw goat's milk, or
Yes.
then go for it. That's not your problem. The problem is a lot of this dairy products they're using have these growth hormones and this Roundup, the glyphosate in the residue, and it's a hormone disruptor. So if you're getting that in the milk in high concentrates from these overabused antibiotic cows, you're getting concentrated bad hormones that are going to stimulate estrogen-rich tissue. So in a female, of course, it's going to attack our breasts or possibly ovaries or even uterine lining. So, even infertility, because we know if the body is not producing enough progesterone and producing an egg, you're still going to have a cycle, but you're not going to, you won't be able to get pregnant. So we look at that whole infertility thing. But as we get older, and that's not even an option anymore with women, we'll start to store weight, because the estrogens and the antibiotics actually cause you to want to gain weight. And it definitely can increase estrogen-rich tissue to grow in ways we don't want it to grow. And yes, Barbara, that's looking at it a little differently. Because what we're doing is we're taking a perfectly wonderful product that's been adulterated by commercial processing in our world today. Our food is commercially made. So understand, the more commercial hands have touched it, the more contamination or less nutritional value you're going to get with that food, as opposed to if you made the yogurt yourself.
Kim, though,
Okay.
aren't there on the market some yogurts and milk that just says on
Yes.
it that it
Non-B,
does not-
I think it's BBA or something, the non-growth hormone. Yes, there
Yes,
are.
Yes.
Yes.
Now,
And-
are those safe?
Well, again, I'm
I mean,
such
do
a
we-
huge advocate of blood type diet. I have seen it in my personal life of almost 25 years change my life and other people's. So if it's something that's not a good protein or not a good fat or not a good carb, I'm not going to eat it in excess. I'm just not, because I know that those things can cause inflammation and cause damage to my body. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to first do it as clean as I can. And is there anything wrong with a little half a cup of yogurt with some fruit and this and that? Well, see how you feel. If you get diarrhea or you get cramping or you get indigestion, then you know what? Maybe it's not right for you. Maybe you don't digest the lactose well. So if that's the case, try something else. What are you doing the yogurt for? I'm doing it for calcium. I'm doing it for calcium. It's so important. You're going to get more calcium out of leafy green vegetables than you're ever going to get out of something like that. I'm doing it for the probiotics. Well, unless it's manufactured properly, the probiotics aren't going to possibly survive that manufacturing. If they do, they're very small amounts. The sugar, it's not the right combo to do if that's what you're looking for. So it's kind of more understanding, why am I eating that food? If I want to eat the yogurt because the television told me that, it's good for me and it's a quick snack, you know what? Pick a quicker snack. Pick a better snack. Look at what is your concern with that. But yes, I read the same article on the breast cancer, and it was the most disturbing thing that I read. Like over 50% increase in the likelihood of breast cancer in people that
That's very
consume
interesting.
commercial yogurts on a regular basis.
So another one is smoothies.
Well, smoothies are a good idea and thought process, but the difference is if you take all the things you put into the smoothie,
Including yogurt.
Including yogurt. And not to say that
Absolutely.
you can't make a smoothie be good, but understand, if you're going to sit down and eat a bowl of salad, let's say you can have a salad, okay? If you were to take all that and grind that up, it's a teeny tiny bit. So if you're putting, 15 stalks of this and a banana and an apple and a frozen fruit and this and that in there, that's a huge amount of calories with not a lot of fiber for your body to be able to process it properly. So if you're going to do it, it's not about drinking a 75-ounce one. If you made yourself a small smoothie, and like you did, a half an apple, a half a cup of this, a quarter cup of that, and as much as you could fresh, but putting in the fiber, because that's where most things lack, is they don't have the fiber to process and break down the sugars well. There's nothing wrong with it, but what do people get today? They go get a smoothie, and the sugar content in that is so high that it's going to stress your pancreas out. And sometimes now you can get protein additives to them, which most of the time, depending on what that source of protein is, it could go kind of back to the bad hormones and antibiotics if it's a whey product.
bad bacteria.
Exactly. It could be not as good as you
Absolutely.
want it to be. So again, it would be just understanding that, because there's nothing wrong with a smoothie. I make smoothies, but what do I put in? I put pea protein in mine.
But don't
I put
buy them.
fiber.
Make
'em.
This one was talking about buying them.
No, buying them, you're at risk at what the
store.
commercial,
Yes.
what
And
the commercial
behind-
sugar
yeah,
sources
that's it.
are going to be.
Cheaper to do it at home.
And you know
Okay.
what? And you can control it, because
Yeah.
let's say you want something like, let's say you had some dental work taken out, and you were concerned about mercury, and you could take and throw, look at the things I'm going to put in my smoothie to help with heavy metal. I'm going to throw some cilantro. I'm going to eat some extra celery, because celery is great for detoxing. I'm going to make that smoothie then medicinal. Then it becomes like tea or anything else.
Sure.
That's right.
But the commercial things, unfortunately, when they're pouring a syrup in there, I'm going to guarantee you there's high fructose corn syrup,
Yeah,
and that's a
absolutely. You don't know
genetically
what's in it.
modified poison to your body, and your pancreas doesn't know what to do
That's
with
right.
it. And that's part of our whole degeneration in our society on both ends of the spectrum, is this liquid poison, and then you throw the neurodisturbers in there on top of it, and we wonder why we're not healthy. We're such a disease-riddled country.
Okay, the two more. One of them was brown bread.
Well,
Brown
if you
bread.
understand what they did when I just watched this whole thing on genetically modified history. And when we ended World War II, we had companies that were creating chemicals to kill people. And when the war was over, here we had these chemical companies that had nothing to do. So they took their focus and made it to kill bugs and look at what we can do to make the world a better place. And I say that with a choke in my throat. Well, interesting enough, they threw some of these defoliating agents onto things like wheat. Once you let wheat grow, it grows to a certain height. You let it dry out in the fields. You go out there, you harvest it. Well, they found that they could spray these defoliant agents on the wheat, get it to dry faster, therefore getting another crop in maybe. But what we didn't realize is here we had this wheat that was sprayed with a chemical that we used to kill people. And now we have it on this as a defoliant, like an Agent Orange type product. And we started consuming that. So you look at the sources of those grains, unfortunately, unless, again, if it's an organic, non-GMO, used to grind the grain. Grains used to be processed differently. But the bottom line is that is another industry that went commercial. That's an industrial industry. If you go home and you go get yourself some almond flour and some cracked this and some steel grain oats and you make yourself some bread, there's nothing wrong with that. Because, again, you're controlling what you're putting in there. If you're going and getting, and unfortunately, that's part of understanding the natural, when they throw those words in there, it's natural or it's this. You want to make sure that the wording is right or what's on that as a label. Because, unfortunately, people are, if there's nobody's going to hold them accountable to that, they're going to get away with it as long as they can. But I will say this, there is a shift happening in the market. It's
Big
happening,
shift.
people.
Big shift.
It's happening. And it's happening because people are saying, I want to spend my dollar here.
It's the
Even as
money
crazy
part
as
of
it
it.
is. Exactly.
We're
And
shifting it.
Yep. And I'm not, let me tell you, I am not a McDonald's fan. I don't eat there,
gosh.
I can't say, but I will give McDonald's kudos. Read an article the other day that they are going to an organic chicken farmer for their chicken. You know what? I give them kudos. They want the market. They want to be
Others
that.
are doing it
exactly.
too. They're being forced to do it because of what we are crying out and saying, you are not going to poison us
Well,
anymore.
the thing is this, we are actually behind the wagon because these companies are already doing it in other countries.
Yep.
If Nestle's and McDonald's and all these companies want their Coca-Cola, their products in these other countries, they've had to change because the other countries won't let in the GMO-riddled
Correct.
garbage and the high fructose corn syrups. So wait a minute, companies, and I don't have the list because it'd be a great list to read, but what about the American people? What about us? Why are we You're not holding us to that same quality. You can get away with it. Why? Because it does go back to cheap. Yes, I think the shift is happening. It is happening. It should have never, ever been something to have to shift.
No,
These
you're
companies
right.
should have had integrity to say, if we're going to manufacture a food for children, that we're going to make that at least be something nutritional. Now, I'm all about the making life manageable for you, and as crazy as it is,
But
even a
instant
pop,
breakfast was
exactly.
boom, right
But even
there.
even instant oatmeal 30 years ago
Yep.
and instant oatmeal today,
Pour in some water and
totally
stir it up.
different. Exactly, totally different products. They really are different products because how they're manufactured. There's a lot more hands here, so you want to go as simple as you can, and that's kind of what it is. You want the oatmeal? Yeah, so you make a pot of oatmeal and you do it up and you make a big pot and you throw it in the fridge.
right.
And the rest of the week you scoop some out, you mix in whatever, and you make your food. Your food should be your medicine. And I bet you I can guess what the last one is, Barb. Processed meats.
No.
Oh, because that's
That would be-
that's a
that is-
bad
I
one.
know.
Yeah.
Soup in cans.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
How about just
well,
anything
oh.
in cans?
Well, soup only because
soup.
again they go with the sodium and the inferior ingredients to do it. So again, that's something easy to make.
Well, there's something also in the tin
Yes,
itself.
in the lining of the cans. Yes, there's a BP agent, which again is a neurodisruptor.
Which over time
Yep, it
very
seeps.
slowly seeps
Yes.
into the
Yes,
soup.
and same thing
Or
when we look at
leaches
water
it.
bottles. It leaches, exactly. When we look at water bottles and other things, they have a certain BP rating on them because you
Yes.
don't want that plastic. And unfortunately, all it takes is heat. Well, those soups are packaged warm. And so that heat is there in the beginning. And let's say that pallet just happens to sit out on the loading dock for a 115-degree day for a half an hour.
You don't know
You
it
don't know
when
that.
you're buying it.
Exactly. And, again, it just kind of goes back to simple. If you look at the simple ways things used to be done. I get my food from the local butchers and kind of, ask where my stuff comes from. But when I do have a batch of bones, I'll save up, chicken bones or beef bones, and I'll make bone broth. And then I'll take that bone broth and I'll put it into cubes or into Ziploc bags and freeze it. So if I want to come home, and it's all about easy. That's why people go to fast food, because it's easy.
Easy.
It's easy.
But we can be easy
We
at
can do it at
home.
home. Exactly. So you could take that Ziploc bag out or the cubes out, throw it in a bowl, in a saucepan, chop up some fresh vegetables, some leftover chicken or protein or tuna, whatever you like, and you can make yourself a very simple soup that would be nutritious, as opposed to something, again, where you don't know what the sodium content is. You don't know what a lot of that. And again, that's because it's over processed. It's an industry. And the other one is lunch meats. You really need to look at what's in processed lunch meats and processed meats, because again, that's another one of those. You're popping the cancer pill every single day, and you know what? It's hard. It's hard to go out there and look and do. But again, there are companies that are doing it. Yes, they have shorter shelf life of their product. But if they create the market and the market knows that product exists, they're not going to have a problem selling that product.
That's true.
You know, and go to your local butcher here, like I do over in Canyon Country Butcher over in Canyon Country at how is it? I call it
Dave's?
Mike's. No,
Mike's?
the
Jim, Jack,
No,
George,
don't come to
Henry,
me. No, because
Phil?
his Keith's, because he's great. He's a great guy. But again, you ask, where does the lunch meat come from? You know, my daughter usually goes to the butcher. That's why I don't. But now she's employed on the other side of the hill. But you know where your stuff comes. Just ask. Even stores like Costco, because the demand is there, that organic section is growing. They are growing, and exactly. So just ask, because the biggest thing is the live, fresh green. You know, like let's say I'm going to have a smoothie for breakfast. Okay, if you're not. Like I said, if you make it yourself, great. But if not, you know, who's not to say you can't have a beautiful salad for breakfast with some hemp seeds on there and something. And you can easily get yourself a couple little round pots and put them on your patio and grow the little microgreens.
that's right.
Go out there every day and scissor some of those, the calcium in that, or things like kale and Swiss chard. That stuff grows like
absolutely.
weeds.
Yeah.
Literally like weeds. And you can chop one of those. And again, you're getting fresh. And the best thing is if you got nice, good organic dirt and you're taking care of that plant, when you pick that piece of kale, you know what you do with it when you get it in the house? Well, you don't wash it. You chop it up and you eat it. Because part of the microbes we're missing in our world today is the microbes that we used to get from the earth
Soil.
that gave our intestinal tract the integrity to be whole. So if you have that opportunity to have your own little nice organic pot with some earthworms in there, you're snapping a couple pieces of that kale. Even if you took it in and juiced it, you can't buy that kale in the store. There's no way. Your quality, and it's simple to have that. Look at what I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to do salad. I would do this. Well, then whatever that is, encourage that into, because, you know, people say, well, it's all about protein. How much protein can I get? Some of the biggest animals on the planet are vegetarians. They get their proteins from plants. Now, that's an important thing to understand, their digestion and how they work. Do I suggest people? Again, I'm an advocate of blood type diet. I don't think there's anything wrong with a small, decent, organic piece of protein that is appropriate for your blood type. Be it fish, be it bison, be it whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you sit down and all you're eating is an 87-ounce steak and a potato and French fries, or you know, whatever, fried this, that's a whole different. That's not the moderation we're talking about.
That's true. Well,
for well-being.
we need
Coronary
to
diet.
we need to take a break, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Barbara Cochran with my co-host Dr. Jean Dorio on your hometown station KHTS.
Want to go back in time to the days when a restaurant
Dorio on your hometown station, KHTS. And we're speaking with Kim Wahl, who is an alternative medicine advocate. And boy, we've covered a lot of ground.
A lot of ground in a really
don't
quick
do,
time.
don't do, don't do.
Look, yeah.
Yes.
Understand, like I said, unfortunately, we've been fed convenience. And inconvenience, just like everything else, our whole food system has been adulterated. We have commercialized everything from our animals to our gardens to our farming. It's been we've poisoned it. It's time to take a step back and say, is this path working for us? Do we really want to continue down this path? Because if you listen to the people that are pro these GMOs and things, they're very brainwashed in their thought process, but they're just not looking at the big picture, you know? If you're seeing the dying of insects and you're seeing the mutation of animals in nature,
Bees.
yes, which is heartbreaking, because of these chemicals, you've got to realize, people, that it will affect us the same way. And we're
Absolutely.
seeing it with the autism, and we're seeing it with the Alzheimer's. It's on both ends of the spectrum. But the thing again is, if we're looking at foods like this, Barb, that are things that are designed that are unfortunately carriers of these poisons, and these poisons we know can damage the intestinal lining. Now your intestinal integrity is missing, so when you get things that you eat or you do, or inappropriate substances, they can get through that blood-brain barrier. Now they can get into your bloodstream that they're not supposed to. Biggest thing being proteins that can cause inflammation. Well, inflammation is truly one of the cores of all disease. It's the body's response. What is it responding to? If we look at the most simple thing we put in our mouth is our food. And like I said, it doesn't, we've been fed this line that it's got to be all of this. It doesn't. Let it be what you enjoy. If you enjoy arugula, then you go grab yourself a container of organic arugula. You love the eggs for breakfast. You get yourself some nice chicken eggs. Maybe at the farmer's market would be my place to recommend to get them from, because they're the best there. And, you know, you make yourself some in the morning, a beautiful, egg flipped over omelet, or however you prefer your eggs, and a little arugula salad, and call it a day. Understand, it's not about quantity. It's about quality of what we eat.
But
So
it's not the inconvenience anymore.
not. It's
Because
simple.
the American people, listeners to this show, are driving the market right now.
Yes, we are.
And because we are bringing it forward where it's getting easier for us.
I just watched a thing the other day about a store that was talking about the whole creating the prepared product for you. So if you wanted to go in, you could grab this, and this, and prepare it very quickly. So it's taking the chopping and all that out of it, which again is a natural fast food. But again, look at the quality of what you put in your body. It's not just quantity. It's about the quality, because your body's a
Always is.
machine. Always is, guys.
And a quality show we have, because we're giving information to the people in this community who really need it, and will continue to push the people who make our foods to be better.
Exactly, and you seniors are very powerful, money base. You go in those stores, you ask them for this, you question what that's there. Challenge them, because the more we do that, the more they're going to go, oh, some of these people don't know. But the more we're going to wake up that market, and the more we will take back what is ours.
Kim Wahl, always great to have you on the show.
Thanks, guys.
Teaching the community every week that you are on.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
We are sponsored by Advanced Audiology and Comfort Keepers in Home Care. Listen to us next week on the Senior Hour. Now go and enhance your quality of life.